Hi everyone, my name is Sean from Legacy Event Group, and I am excited today for our first Legacy Event Pros interview. We are social distancing and have our masks on, but we are 6 feet away, so we're going to go ahead and take our mask off so you can hear me clearly. We have a studio set up in the back. It's a little bit closer than 6 foot, so we're kind of in a temporary studio here so we can talk to and learn more about Viva La Strings. So, hi Pendra.
Hi, good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in today, and thank you for being the first of our Legacy event interviews. It's an honor to have you as the first because we have worked with you countless numbers of times and recommend you all the time. And so thank you for coming in today and telling us more about Viva La Strings, but also telling the potential clients, the future clients, more about Viva La Strings.
Well, thank you. I'm honored as well, and thank you for having us here.
Well, let's start out pretty simple and pretty easy. Tell us a little bit more about Viva La Strings, but also more about you individually, because sometimes as a company head, we have like a, you are this or you are that. I want to know about Viva, but I also want to know about Pendra.
Okay, well, Pendra is an entrepreneur, and I have done all kinds of things over the many years, from being in the media. I've been a television reporter and host. I owned a newspaper, and in the background has always been the music. So as I changed from one career to the next, I got to the place in life where I wanted to pick up the music again. And in doing so, I ran into some more musicians, and we started doing weddings outside under trees, and it just evolved from there. And one day we were doing a string trio for a fundraiser for a community event in town in Dayton, and they asked us what the name of our group was so they could put it in the brochure. Well, their event was Viva La Vita, and we didn't have a name. So I thought for a moment, and I said, we're Viva La Strings. And that's how we got the name. So it stuck. It's a great name. I actually have it registered as a national trademark, so it's protected.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that was a lot about what instruments do you play? And when I say instruments, I'm going to be very ignorant on the instruments and stuff. We refer you all the time because live musicians is so much more beautiful than recorded music. So tell me a little bit about the instruments that you play, and then possibly some of the people that you work with, some of those instruments also.
Okay, well, my main instrument is violin. I've played piano, a little guitar, but mainly it's all violin now. So Viva La Strings, we've pulled together string musicians. We have several violists, violinists, cellists, even have a string bass if necessary. We do incorporate guitars and keyboards, have had a couple flutes every now and then when that's requested. And then, you know, we can pull together other musicians as people want. We can provide vocalists, but our core is strings. And the people that originally started with me with Viva La Strings, we all played together at church. So we played together, we worshiped together, and we became friends together. And then that's basically how each additional musician that we've added has happened. We have a relationship playing together, which is very beneficial. And then we have our church relationship. And then we've spun out. I have a manager now in Nashville, Tennessee, and he manages a group of Viva La Strings Nashville. He played with us originally in Dayton, and then we have recently started Viva La Strings Columbus. So, and that's a cousin to one of the original viola players. So we're family, and you know, and we play together and we worship together and we have a great time.
So my next question would be, if there is a Viva La Strings meetup, where do you go?
There you go.
I'm thinking Nashville. That's
Exactly.
where I would go.
Yeah, you can't help but stumble over some famous people in Nashville. Jacob Tudor, who's the manager there, has a blast, and everybody's a little bit envious of him. But we did have a 10-year reunion 2 years ago. I kind of put the start date. It's like 2008, even though 2006 we basically started, but you know, I had to draw the line somewhere, and that's when we got the official name registered with the state and all that. So we had a 10-year anniversary, and that was a blast. And it was so cool to see as many people that from Viva that could show up showed up. And as I was looking, we had it at the Dublin Pub in Dayton, which is one of our favorite places that we play Christmas time. Every year we've been doing that for many, many years, for the whole month in December. So we had it there. And I was so in awe of all the people that showed up that are Viva players. And I looked around and everybody brought instruments. And there were more cellos and more violins and more instruments in that room than I think in any orchestra I had seen in a long time. So it was a blast.
So I'm going to go back just a second. You had said 2006, 2008, somewhere around in there is when Viva La Strings was created. How did you get into music? I mean, was it something that you had for a long time, the bug, or how did you become the musician that you are today?
Well, like a lot of people, started early in life, So I in fact, they start earlier today than they did back then. But I remember dragging my little violin to school in the 4th grade. So that's when I started, and played all the way through college, and played all the way through getting my master's. But what's really interesting is I got my undergraduate in music, but I got my master's in broadcasting. So after I graduated, I went right into the broadcasting business for the next 10, 15 years and didn't play my violin. So when I had, family, kids, blah, 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 everything happens in life, and then the music came back around again. And I think that just being the entrepreneur that I am, it just became a natural to start another business. I mean, that's what we do. We rehab houses, we run a newspaper, and so, okay, let's start this music business. And I mean, I didn't plan to do that. I didn't start out that way, but a lot of it had to do with when we owned the newspaper. It was a newspaper that circulated in a lot of churches. So I already knew a bunch of pastors. So I'd show up at a wedding and there'd be the pastor that I already knew. So I don't know, it just all worked out that way.
Well, so we have talked a lot about different options of Viva La Strings, what they can do, so many different branches. Tell me about some of the package. Let's get into the packages that you deliver. Actually, let's back up just a second. Let's talk about the service you deliver. So we've talked a lot about the beautiful strings and instruments, but we haven't really talked about what you do. So tell me, we know that you do ceremonies and things like that for weddings, because that's where we met you. Tell me more. What other things have you done as far as those events?
Well, we can also do corporate events in addition to weddings and ceremonies and dinner music and holiday parties. But we do corporate events, which is really nice because that way you really don't have an agenda as you do with a wedding. So the client will say, well, I want all classical music, or I want some pop music, or I mix it up. And so basically we have a lot of freedom to play. As long as it's in the genre that they want, we can play just about anything that we like. So that's nice. It's nice to do those corporate events. But we can, I think the biggest part about all that is the customer service, because there's a lot to going, as you know, to put on a wedding. And we associate with a lot of the wedding vendors, and everybody has a niche, and everybody has a piece of the puzzle, and we all have to get our part right for the whole thing to be right. And brides look to us as the professionals to do that. And working with brides is fun, and sometimes it's challenging. There's seasons where brides all seem this way, and then they're all this way. I don't know if you've noticed those kind of trends. Some are real hands-on. Some they're just, I like this one song, and you figure out the rest. So, but to providing the customer service and the response time when they get an inquiry, and doing all those backside business things that people don't see when you go out there then to perform the music. That's a lot of it. Contracts and coordinating people and pulling together. Does she want a quartet? Does she want a duo? Does she have a big budget? Does she have a little budget? So all those elements go on behind the scene before we even show up. And lately, with what's been going on with the pandemic, you're probably the same way. Things have just been up in the air. We did play a wedding yesterday, and we were masked, and the guests all were social distancing, and it was a very large venue, so everybody could do that. But to get to that point, it was months of that poor bride fretting and wondering even if she could have a wedding. So, you know, obviously we don't want to get emotionally involved with our clients, but there's a part of you where you have to empathize, say, you know, things like this is just out of the box, unordinary. And so working with them is just, that's very key. Then you show up and then you get to play, and that's the beauty of it. But providing the live music, we can do things that maybe canned music can't do. Bride has sometimes they have some very interesting ideas of what they want to walk down the aisle to, and we accommodate them the best we can. If we kind of think, oh, that might be a little odd, can maybe steer them another way, but you know, we resolve when they get to the point at the altar, wherever their ceremony is taking place. And so we can do hands-on, keeping an eye on everything that's happening at the same time. If we have to extend it, if they have a flower girl and she gets lost on the way down, you know, you got to keep playing the music. So, you know, having a live group there can be flexible and adapt to the situation right on the spot.
Well, I am glad that you mentioned the part about the business side of things, because I think that is so important. If you could be the best musician in the world, but if everything up until that point has been poor, then the client is going to suffer. So, and it's great, especially in this time of the pandemic, that you're continuing to work with and communicate with clients. And I think that's so important. Your professionalism when you've dealt with us has been stellar. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Again, I just think it's so important that you have both sides of things, that you're not just a good whatever, but you have the business sense too. And it sounds like that came from the broadcasting and stuff. So walk me through. So we've talked about like different things for clients as far as weddings and corporate events and things like that. Walk me through a common wedding when someone chooses Viva La Strings and they have decided that live ceremony music is something that they're interested in and they want to look into more of what Viva La Strings has to offer. How does that work? Do they come in for a consultation? Do they choose all their music? How does that work as far as the clients walking down each path?
Okay, well, after they've signed and committed, and we have a booking fee, and then they have to determine. We recommend quartet or trio, but if it's a very small venue and they have a small budget, I mean, we can provide a solo or a duo. So I like to be able to offer quite different ensemble packages to fit their budget and to fit their venue. So then determining what ensemble they want. Also, we can do quintets as well for like high church, full mass weddings. We have a trumpet that goes with the quartet, string quartet, which is amazing too. So, so after they determine what ensemble they want, they can get access then to the list of music for that particular ensemble. But I ask them to think about their style first, because the list of music can be so overwhelming. Plus, planning a wedding is overwhelming. So I try to get them to narrow it down. Do you want a classical wedding? Do you want a pop wedding? Are you wanting a sacred wedding? A wedding of, is it a Catholic full mass? Are you having communion? So I get them to answer those kind of questions so we can then start narrowing down the music selections. Then I have them focus just on the ceremony portion. Because if they start thinking about, oh, I got a 30-minute prelude, I got to pick, no, don't worry about that. So let's just focus on the ceremony. And usually a bride already knows what song she wants to walk down the aisle to. She's known that since she was 12 years old.
Right.
So that is easy. And then we just work on the bridesmaids and their music, and then, working the ceremony out from the center, basically. And then I'll say, you can pick the prelude music if you want, but just tell me your style and I can make some suggestions, and then you can toss out anything. So I try to be hands-on enough to narrow it down so they don't have a big bite to take, and focusing on what's important first, and then basically working out from that way.
And we've actually, when we work ceremonies, so I didn't know this. One of the other great reasons it's great to sit down and talk. So you kind of help them plan almost the ceremony too. So, I mean, the selection of music would also determine the selection of who walks and things like that. So I'm sure it's a you're working together with them, but you're probably giving them pros and cons, and this is what you can do and things like that for the ceremony too, right? As far as how to design it.
Right. And if it's a church wedding, and if it's particularly like a Catholic full mass wedding, first thing I tell them is find out from the parish, your priest, your church musician, if they have any limitations or restrictions on the music. Some churches, anything is fine. Some churches, it's strictly from this list of music. So I don't want brides to get all planny and come up with stuff and want to play 1,000 years and then they get, nix, can't do that. So, those kind of details we work out first so we don't have to backtrack. Usually it works out that way.
So with Legacy, we provide a lot of equipment. A lot of things that buzz and beep and,
Yes.
and flash. If we always say if we plug it in, we probably service it. Do you need amplification? If it's what are the options as far as large venue, small venue? How does amplification work into not just what you want, but what you need as far as to do a ceremony?
We don't normally need amplification. When we do like a guitar trio, the guitar will have an amp, and then it depends. Like in a corporate venue or a cocktail hour, if we have that trio, then we do have microphones and amps for the instruments. But generally, for the strings, it's all acoustic, which is great because I don't know if you remember a few years ago when that big hurricane came from the south and knocked out the power in this part of the world several years ago. We were playing a wedding somewhere in Ohio. I don't remember now. But there was absolutely no power, but we played. We didn't need power.
Getting into more of the client's choice of Viva La Strings is do they have an opportunity to see you play? Or we get a question a lot like, hey, can we see you live DJ or something like that? And we're like, well, we can't invite you to somebody else's wedding.
Right,
so
right.
is there any opportunity for them to hear like a set list or specific songs or anything like that?
Well, we do have a lot of music on YouTube or on our website. Some of it has been like produced in a studio. Some of it has just been caught live on a cell phone at a wedding, which basically is good because it catches the live action, and it may not be produced, but that's not going to be at your wedding anyway. It's going to be a live situation. So there's a lot of options for people to be able to see some of our musicians and performing in various ensembles. But we do play in December at the Dublin Pub at Christmas time, various ensembles. And I always invite brides and clients and people to come. Here's your chance to see it. In December, too, is great because the next year brides are planning. Mm-hmm. So, that is our one live. I'm hoping to maybe get a few more live opportunities for us, especially now. I've had this idea in my head with what's happening with all of our restaurants and our places where we all like to go being closed down. I've been having discussions with my Nashville manager and our Columbus manager that maybe we can find a nice venue and offer our services for them, and then it'll be like a two-way street. So we could have some live music and bring some attraction to their venue and promote ourselves as well. So I've got some of those things in the works in my head.
Well, you're setting the bar pretty high if Dublin Pub is where you're starting because that means you got to find a place with the food service and ambiance to the Dublin Pub level, or it just wouldn't be a comparison. So you had mentioned a little bit before about the client is able to look at the set list and things like that. And we had talked about music and stuff. Two questions. Is there, if there's a song that's not on the set list, is that something that you can do? And the second question would be, we get this question all the time as DJs, what's the song that you play the most, or what's the most requested song, or what do you play the most often? I'm actually going to make another one. This is going to be a three-part question.
Okay.
What song do you like to play the most? Because I think that's an important thing with DJs too.
Yeah.
We have the music that we play, but there's music that we like. So three-part question.
Okay. All right. What was the first part?
The first part was the first part was the music set list.
Yeah.
Are they able to choose individual songs?
Yes. We have a vast set list, and it's almost become a hoarder situation for musicians. We have so much music, which is wonderful. But we do offer them one free arrangement, as long as it's easy to find, and there's little caveats there, beyond one or not easy to find, then we do charge. But we can get anything custom arranged. I've got arrangers. Our Nashville guy arranges. We've got a couple of arrangers in different places. So, yeah, we can do special requests, and we've done a lot of those. For, I guess, the most requested, every year basically changes, but, for wedding ceremonies, you get a lot of canon in D, Pachelbel canon in D. Okay, there's a lot of that, which is fine. But we do have a new version of it called the New Canon in D, and it's kind of fun to play. There's a little more going on, but they don't walk down the aisle to that. But as far as the pop side, a lot of the brides, it has been like 1,000 years, but it's going to be interesting because that 1,000 years has been around a while. Feels like 1,000 years. But, we'll see what's happening, when we get into the 20s and 21s, if those things changes. Because it's funny, we'll get like a really odd request for a song. And something like, I remember playing something from Pride and Prejudice or from something else. And I'm thinking, where did that come from? Oh, is there a movie out that's the theme song now? So that kind of thing happens. There's something out there in the culture that may not be, popular on the radio, but something's going on in the culture that maybe I'm not attuned to. But it shows up in some of the music choices.
Well, I'm going to say something that's probably going to get me a lot of comments in the comment section. And I'm going to speak directly to everyone out there. The reason that I don't like playing 1,000 Years is because Twilight. I'm sorry. I hate that. I hate that movie. I don't like it. I can't get into it. I can't. So I'm sorry out there if everyone is giving me hate down in the comments. It's 1,000 Years. I'm sorry. Twilight is the reason why I can't do 1,000 Years.
See, there you go. There's always something. There's always something back there.
What was your favorite song to play?
Well, I guess it depends on what part of the ceremony, but I really like playing Best Day of My Life. Ba-da-da-bum-bum-bum-bum. It's just fun to play.
Okay, yeah. From American authors?
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. And it's a nice recessional piece, for a very poppy kind of wedding.
So one of the things that I wanted to hit on too is when you set up, you don't need the amplification, but how much space do you need? Is there a place where you have to set up for a ceremony? Do people usually want you visible, or do they want you off to the side? How does that work as far as your setup?
Well, normally we set up on one side or the other of the altar area, where the ceremony is taking place. And that's a couple of reasons for that. We want to be able to see down the aisle where it's coming at us when the doors open, and then we want to be able to see what's going on in the ceremony for different cues, so we can catch our cues. Few times, I don't know why, maybe space, they've put us in the back behind the guests. Very awkward. We usually have to have somebody there to let us know that the bridesmaids have landed on their spot. Otherwise we're standing up and playing. So, those kind of things. So normally we are up front, and that's basically because the bride likes to have that too. It looks nice, especially for the prelude. We're playing as the guests arrive. They're getting a mini concert. So it's nice for them to come in and be able to see the musicians as well. Sometimes in big churches, in older churches where the loft is, or if we're playing with the church musician, if that person is playing a piano, or we're going to be accompanying a singer or a cantor or whatever, we'll be in a loft. A loft is obviously we aren't seen, and we really depend on the church person because they have their mirrors and all kinds of tricks to see things like underneath where the people are coming out. So that's one other option we do, and that's usually in a full mass Catholic church where they have the loft and they put the musicians up there.
I don't want to bore everybody out there with horror stories, but there was a wedding that we did. It wasn't a horror story, but it's we were delayed on the entrance, and you guys were kind of off to the side. I don't remember what venue it was. It was an outside venue, but I remember if we don't do the ceremony, we have that person there that is like, with radio communication to our MC that's going, no, keep playing, no, keep playing, keep
Uh-huh.
playing. And I remember being that person, right? And then and it was like, we ready to start? Nope, keep playing. Nope, keep playing. And you guys were going, really? We should keep playing? And the bride, I think, was doing some finishing touches, so we were a little
Yes.
behind. But I remember that. And so
That's very good to have somebody to signal you, because in the cases where we're in some churches or some venues where there isn't a planner or there isn't you guys doing, your DJing and communicating, it can be very hazardous. Quick story. We were playing in a loft we played, the the mothers came down. So we started the bridesmaids music and nobody came. And then we were playing again, and nobody came to tell us anything. And the church pianist was in the loft with us. They all knew down there the priest had the wrong time. So we played more canon in D than I will ever want to know.
But you made it happen. That's the phenomenal thing. Right. That's the one of the reasons that we recommend you. One of the many reasons is you make it happen. I mean, there's so many people out there that are very talented, but when it comes to the actual wedding and the actual event, if you're not on the ball as far as that goes, then everything else falls apart. So, that story I told about, nope, keep playing, keep playing. That's one of the reasons, is because you trusted us, we trusted you. Mm-hmm. And in the end, the people that were sitting in the audience were none the wiser that we were a little bit behind.
Exactly.
The music continued, everything was perfect. And getting that feedback at the end, like everything was perfect. And I'm thinking, no, it actually wasn't.
If only you knew. Another thing too, I want to be fair with our clients. There's one lovely venue in the area that we absolutely love to play. We get a lot of recommendations. It's a smaller venue though, and there's no need for a string quartet in that venue. Even though we recommend a quartet in most venues because of the variety of music and the sound, and it's just a lot of fun to play. Mm-hmm. But in this particular venue, a trio or a duo is perfectly wonderful. And so, I don't like to push something on somebody if it's not necessary.
Yeah, tailoring the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. So let's say that the client is looking at multiple options for ceremony music, and they have looked into multiple options, and they're trying to decide. You're talking to that client now. What do you tell them? What makes Viva La Strings unique, the clear choice when it comes to ceremony music? And before the tape started rolling, you and I were talking, I said, I know what I would say, because I know what we tell our clients. We do ceremony music, but I would like to hear kind of your outlook on it and what the client should know.
Well, if you were choosing between live music and not live music, I would obviously recommend live music for obvious reasons. But the reasons are too that we can adapt when your guests, even starting at the beginning, when your guests are walking in and they see a string quartet playing just for them, that's very enjoyable for them. They feel like they're getting a special treatment. They feel like they're getting a mini concert. We've even had a couple of times where guests have applauded, which is really strange, but fine, it's wonderful. But so giving your guests that is nice, and they like to see that live. And then again, we have the ability, being live, to see and adapt and to change things up, if necessary, to extend, to cut, if we need to. So just having the live music is the best as far as to be able to adapt to what's going on. I also like to, a feather in Viva's cap. We're happy musicians. And that may seem kind of strange, but musicians can be very serious when they play, and they should take their music very seriously because that's their job and their performance. But as far as then their faces and their visual and how they project to the crowd, it's nice to have a pleasant look on your face, and we try to strive for that.
I agree to all of that. So we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about the client experience, why to choose Viva La Strings, your setup, the things that they can choose, how you're going to help them with the ceremony. Now let's tell them how to contact you.
Okay.
What's the best way to contact you? The best way to kind of maybe even have a consultation or talk to you on the phone? How should they get in contact with you?
Well, the easiest thing is to go to our website, vivalastrings.com, and then there is a contact page, and they can fill in their information about their event, whether it's a wedding or a corporate event, and that comes email right to us. And then within, half a day, I'm usually back saying, I'll get back with you right away, or here's the quote, what is it you want? So that's the main way, through our website. But we also have a presence on Wedding Wire and The Knot and Gig Salad and all the usual places. So, but we can do personal consultations. I find that everybody, they're at a different level. Some people are just fine doing it all over email. Some people want to meet in person. So all those options are available.
Awesome. Well, Pendra, thank you for coming in today. I appreciate it. Thank you for being the first Legacy Event Pro interview. I have learned a lot, which is amazing, and I'm sure that our the people viewing are going to learn a lot too. We're going to leave this up on all of our social media and everything, so it will be up for eternity.
Okay, well, good. Well, thank you so much. So blessed to be the first.
Thank you. All right, that's it. Thank you guys for attending, and we will talk to you on the next one.